just a quick tip right now. The lighter color your water is, the less grainy that your render will be. Like, your render will look better. I'll mention this later in the video when we're coloring the water, but until then, just keep in mind. Welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can use effectors in Blender 2.91. Without further ado, let's get started. So this guy up here, he requested that I would make a splash with something in Blender. I didn't really want to go through and make a whole splash. I don't want to say that would take a long time, but it would take longer than we really want to take here. So I'm just going to play around with effectors so you guys and him can see, like, how to get in the way of water with an object without it, like, the water glitching through and not even have anything being there, really. So, now let's get started. And if you don't have Blender, I'll put the link to download it in the description below. Alright, so when you open it, you'll see this default cube right here. You can just click it, X, and delete. Shift A, mesh, add a cylinder, S, Z to shrink it down. Just like that. Now go to the modifiers tab, add modifier, subdivision surface. It's going to look kind of weird. Just do the levels viewport to 6, render to 6, and that's good. Just G, Z to move up, and then with that, you can apply quick liquid to it. So just go into object, and then quick effects, then quick liquid, and that will set up kind of your liquid domain for Manta flow and stuff here. So if you click on the cylinder, you can go to the object settings and viewport display, and it says display as wire. Just go ahead and display as solid, but we're in wire view right now, so it'll still be wire. And so is this. So go into this object settings, display as wire. So now we can make the domain the shape we want. So SY, kind of spread it out. SX, spread it out that way, and SZ, and kind of build it up. And you can go to the side view here, GZ, move it up, and SY, spread it out a little bit, SZ to shrink it again. We kind of just want a small domain here because we're not doing a whole lot. So GZ again, and then with that, click on your cylinder and then go into the physics tab. So the type to flow, that's good. Flow type, liquid. So flow behavior, change that to inflow. It should by default be geometry, but you just change that to inflow. Sampling substeps to 3. Flow source, change this to 1. And then close flow source. Check initial velocity, Z, -1. Alright, and with that, that kind of gives us our liquid properties. Now let's go to the domain. For domain, put the resolution to 100. Okay, that's good. And then go to the very bottom where it says type under the offset option. It should be replay, and we don't want that. Put that to modular, and then check is resumable. So you can check the mesh button, open mesh, this factor to 4, and the particle radius to 1. Okay, now with that, you can scroll up, make sure all your settings are right. I think that's good for now. Yep. And then with that, you can just go up to the bake data option, and I'll be back when that bakes. Alright, now that that is done baking, we can play that animation through. It'll be kind of glitchy, but you'll get the gist of what is happening. So if we just kind of pause it and skip through here, it looked like it did pretty well. Now we have to free the data because we have to add our cubes. So now you can Shift A, mesh, add a cube, scale it down, just with S, and GY, move it over. Alright, GY a little bit more, just kind of find that sweet spot where you want it to land. I'd say more towards the cylinder because we're going to add some bounce to it, and we don't want it flying out of the area right here. So Shift D, Y, over, just like that. And now we're going to add some properties. So with this cube selected, add rigid body, the type 2 active, and go to surface response, and the bounciness to 0.1. Okay, now same thing with this one. Rigid body, bounciness to 0.1. And the same type of active. And now Shift A, mesh, add a plane. Scale it outward. Doesn't have to be huge, just kind of scale it out. And then add rigid body to this, but this type be passive. And bounciness all the way to 1. Alright, now that that's expanded and whatnot, you can select your cube, go to the side view, zoom out and up, because we're going to put these high in the air so they can fall down. So GZ, and put them like up here. We want them to, based on our little data that was sort of rendered in the process of making the data or whatever, it says around like frame 100, that's when the water is kind of full, so that we can eventually drop our cubes into that. So if we go, our cube's way up there, let's just select this cube here, GZ, put it all the way up right next to it kinda, and just right there should be about good. Arrow click it a few times. Okay, just like that. And now if you play that animation through, those cubes should be falling down. The computer's just being slow. Kind of look up, you can see those falling. You kind of want to see what happens over here as they fall down. And around frame 100 is when we want them to actually hit the ground. Alright. Okay, so they didn't hit until like 120, which is fine because the water's more filled up, making more of what I guess would be a splash. But so the bounciness level is already way too high, and we don't really want that. Just expand this a little bit. So let's actually adjust this plane's position first, but GZ, move it down below, just like that. Okay, now you can see like the grid lines. The bounciness on the plane to 0.5. So it's not as bouncy because that went like way out of what we want it to. Okay, now we can play that through. And I just want to see like 120 where they hit. If it even, oh, whoops, I made a mistake. You actually just have to like kind of watch it all the way through. Just watch that as they fall. I'm going to speed this part up so that you can just see the end result and you don't have to wait with me. Alright, so right here, see how bouncy they are. As you can see, they're not as bouncy. They just kind of bounce to the side. And if those land in their position, that is great because they don't go outside the dome, and that will make the liquid look bad. And so now we have to add one more effect to these cubes. So select the cube and just kind of close rigid body. Don't press the X because that gets rid of all the properties, but just kind of close it down with this arrow menu. Okay, then add fluid to it. Type to effector. Now this is what I was talking about. This like gets in the way of the liquid so that it doesn't glitch through. You know, so here, you'll see in a minute. So effector type, collision, yeah. And honestly, all those settings are great. All you have to change was the type from none to effector. Great. Now do that with this cube too. So just add fluid, type, effector. Great. Now you can click on your domain again, and you can bake the data. And that, I think, will be our final bake, and I will be back when that bakes. Okay, now that that is done baking, we can view the animation. Just gonna play it through. Alright, so this part will look the same as last time. It won't really look anything different. What we're looking for is like down by like 130 when the cubes start falling, right here. So actually before that, because that's when they bounced out. So I'm talking about when they fall in, like right there. See, they kind of make like a splash. So now they're just going to fall in. And the reason they made a splash is because they didn't glitch through like what would happen if you didn't add the effector at all. They would just kind of sink through. And so that's pretty much all we've been done looking for. So now all you have to do is kind of just pause your animation, click on the domain, and don't free the data yet. So, or else you just have to redo it again. Now you have to click a button called Bake Mesh. This will, depending on your computer, take about, my computer takes about 20 minutes to do this mesh, but depending on yours, it will vary a lot. So just go ahead and click that button, Bake Mesh, and I'll see you when that's done baking. Okay, now that that is done baking, you look at the mesh here. You can start from 0 if you want. You just look normal, and if you play it, it'll be slow. But it'll give you the general idea of what your animation will look like. So if we just pause it here, and we skip to when our cubes come by, or when they splash, it'll be slow, but see, it'll show you the splashing. It'll show you water being thrown off the top of the cube and whatnot. And that is the effect that we want. Okay, so first thing that we got to do is the mesh can be kind of like too poly, I guess, like low poly. So you could just go to Object, Shade Smooth, so that it is smoother water. Next, we are going to go to the render settings, and where it says render engine, just click on Eevee and change that to cycles. That will like make our water actually look like water and not just disappear. Trust me, I've tried it in Eevee. It doesn't really work. So, yeah, if you have a GPU, you can set it to that. If not, you can just leave it at CPU. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. So now, with it basically done, we can just go into the Materials tab and start, like, making what it looks like. So go to the Materials tab, and with it still selected, and you'll know if it's selected because it's orange. If you click off it, it'll turn black. So click on it, and the IOR, it's 1.330 by default, and we want that 1.333. Doesn't make that much of a difference, just kind of there. We're going to change this to red, just so it stands out from my other tutorial. I'll put the link right up there. You can go check that out. It'll be like a light red, kind of like that. And then the roughness to 0.5. And then we can like start designing kind of the cubes. So just add a new material for the cube. And you can just kind of leave it at this, or you can change the color of the cube. I will, to like kind of cyan type color. And do it for the other cube too. This color, kind of cyanish. Okay, and that's good. So after that, we're going to change our world background to white. And this will only show that the world background is white when we're in rendered view or material preview. So go to the world settings, color, and then just leave that in there, and just on this bar right here, put that up to all the way white. Okay, cool. So now we're going to change our lighting settings. So once you click on the light, you can go to the light tab down here, change that to sun, and you want to set the sun strength to 5 because this, at the setting it's at, is really strong, especially with the white background. So click this little thing up here and G, and just kind of move it to like the corner or by where the default camera places, and just shine it through the water. So get the best angle you can to basically do this. So this GZ, so it's kind of under there a little more, and we get a better effect of shining through the water. Okay, cool. So now we're going to change our camera settings. So go into camera, and kind of zoom in a little bit so I get this full effect. N to navigation settings, go to view, and lock camera to view. So now we're going to adjust our camera settings. Just kind of place this where you think it would be good to have, and you can highlight this, to have your camera, or to have the cubes fall. I think I'm going to put it over here, or to get a better lighting view of where our light shines through, I'll put it over here and close the navigation menu. Okay, so now let's go to the camera settings. So just click on the outer camera, and where it says end, just change that to like 10,000. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go to the render settings because we're finally like able to kind of render it. But first I want to check out the render preview. So we go to there and we hide that. Hide the overlay. Should kind of look like Jello a little bit if you did change the color to red. You can change the color to whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. But this is just kind of there, and it looks really grainy right now, and it will still look grainy after where it says path tracing sample 12 out of 32, now 13. Even when the render like preview is finished, it's still gonna look like really grainy and probably more grainy than you would want it to. But don't worry, because when it is rendering, it will look a lot less grainy. So you can put back the overlay and go back to like the just the viewport shading, and go to the output properties tab. Output properties. And go change it to 30 frames a second. And that's pretty much all you have to do up there for the frame rate. Okay, so now we're going to change it where it says file format, change that from PNG to AVI JPEG, and the quality to 100%. Now let's save this file somewhere. We'll just save it to downloads as, I don't know, just like water. Just like that. Accept it. That's where it'll save. You can click on it again just to make sure it's accepted. Alright, now let's go up to the render window, and when you're ready, just click render animation, and that will start rendering. So, as you can see, it is already a lot less grainy and spending some time on it. But that is pretty much all for this tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks to this guy for requesting this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next one.